Konnichiwa. Welcome to the AI Automation Dojo, where we ask the tough questions like, if AI is so smart, why does autocorrect still think ducking is a viable alternative? Today, we're pulling back the curtain on UiPath agents and UiPath Maestro, the dynamic duo supposedly here to orchestrate your robot's workforce. Or, make sure your digital minions don't stage a coup. We'll be looking at UiPath agents. Are they really tireless digital employees or just very sophisticated Tamagotchis you have to keep alive? UiPath Maestro, the grand conductor of the robot orchestra? Or is it more like a stressed-out air traffic controller for bits and bytes? And the big question, does this whole setup actually lead to symphonic efficiency? Or is it just a cacophony with a fancier name? I'm your host, Andrzej Kinastowski, one of the founders of Office Samurai, where we believe bullshit is not a business strategy, no matter how many charts you put in it. So, if you've ever suspected your intelligent agent might be dumber than a bag of rocks, or if you're the one trying to conduct the Maestro without it all turning into a robot rebellion, you've stumbled into the right dojo. Now grab your favorite katana, or maybe that little conductor's baton you've been practicing with in secret, and let's get to it. I must say, when UiPath announced late last year they are going to have their own agents, I kind of shrugged. Well, boo-hoo, I thought. Everybody has agents now. Seriously, this time next year your fridge will be agentic, probably judging your questionable midnight snack choices. So my thrill level, let's just say it wasn't exactly rocketing to the moon. But then we got chosen as one of the few partners with early access. So naturally, we unleashed some of our smartest samurai on these new tools, told them to learn it, break it, and report back. And I gotta say, I am generally, pleasantly, dare I say, surprised. The way UiPath designed these agents and integrated them with the rest of their platform, it's neat. And I don't use neat lightly. I do feel it brings us great opportunities to expand our automation programs even further. And this isn't just about adding another shiny tool to the tech shed. We're talking about whole philosophy of automation here. A well-oiled machine where AI agents think, bringing human-like reasoning to the table. Robots and integrations do. They execute tasks with that sweet, sweet binary precision, and Maestro orchestrates. It's acting as the puppet master pulling the strings. And the people lead because they make final decisions. Someone's got to be the adult in the room. This setup, it's got potential to make some real music. Or, at least stop the current noise. Let's take a look at agents first. A good example would be an anti-phishing agent, which is an agent that you can use in many different automations if they start with an email. In UiPath Agent Builder, you have the fields that you would expect when building an AI agent. So we would have a name and a description. We have a long system prompt. And this system prompt, it has a lot of information. It contains a lot of rules. And it is something that you can write yourself, but you can also use GenAI to help you write a good prompt. It is quite interesting how AI is already helping us program other AIs. We have a user prompt which basically tells the agent what it can expect as an input. But then we have things that make it really agentic. So we have tools, and in tools you can connect a lot of different things. So you have activities that are already prepared by UiPath that you can use to connect to different services and applications. You also have processes. So whatever process you have published in your orchestrator, in the tenant that you are building the agent in, you can call from within the agent. This means that an agent, if it, say, needs additional information, it can call up a process, and the process will run. The agent will give it the parameters that are needed for this process to run, and the process can run and then return the data to the agent. This basically means that the user has a lot of different tools that it can use to get the data, to enter data into systems whenever it needs to. And also an agent can call up an agent. So we can do an inception kind of a thing where one agent asks another agent that specializes in something else a question, and then it gets some feedback back. So those tools, the possibility to add tools to an AI agent is already a big win. And if you already have a lot of different processes written for your organization, big and small, attended and unattended, you can connect them to an agent, and you can make an agent be able to use those tools to perform the tasks that it is to perform. Of course, we also have contexts. When we talked about AI assistants and AI agents, we talked about the knowledge that you can put into an AI tool. And this is what context really is. You put some documents into a storage bucket in your orchestrator, and then you can set this storage bucket as a context for this particular agent. This means that the agent will know the information that you have in those files. So when it operates, it will take this information into account. And then we have something that is a big part of why agents can be easy to use and the business can feel quite secure with agents. It's escalations. And the escalation basically means that you can set conditions when the agent should not make a decision, but instead ask a human to make the final decision. So in the case of an anti-phishing agent, what we have is that if it is not sure that a given email is a phishing, it will ask a human, literally. So it will create an action in Action Center, and then a human operator will have a look at the email, and it will decide whether it is or it is not actually a phishing. So this puts a human in the loop, and this helps us have control over what the agents are doing and make sure that they do not do some wild decisions when we're not looking. As you usually get with agents, you can test it as you build it. So we have a window where we can run a prompt. And in this case, because the input for the agent is an email body, you can just type or paste an email just to see how the robot, just to see how the agent will respond to it. So if I put as an input in an email body something like, I am an Ethiopian prince and want to send you $1 million, the agent will analyze this, and I am expecting for it to tell me that, yeah, this actually is a phishing. So the agent, based on the input I have given it, it tells me that this is in fact a phishing, and it outputs also a variable that can be used further that says that we should not keep on processing this particular email. Now, writing agent prompts, once you learn a little bit about it and you practice a little bit, and you maybe build some tools that help you do that, is quite easy and it's quite fast. The challenge is always in the testing, because those algorithms, being non-deterministic, they can bring different results, and every time you change something in the prompt, it can lead to unforeseen consequences. And this is why when you test it manually, you have an option to add this particular case to the evaluation set. And evaluation sets, you can store as many of them as you like for each agent. And then every time you change something in the agent, you have an option to run all those tests and see whether the outputs that the agent is providing are still in line with your expectations. So this is a great thing when it comes to automation of testing of agents. You can do it within the tool itself. And what this mechanism is using is what we call LLM-as-a-judge. We need it because the outputs of an AI agent are not necessarily something that we can just quickly compare to the expected results. Sometimes we will get a number or a text that can be compared one-to-one with what we're expecting. But more often than not, we get something like an email body, and it will every time contain the same information, but it will be written in a different way. It will be phrased differently. So you cannot just compare two strings to see whether the evaluation went well. What you need to do is you need an LLM to actually make a judgment. The output that we got from this run of an agent, is it in its nature the same as the expected answer, not whether it's character to character identical. And of course, we have traces, so we can see for every run of an agent, we can see detailed information, what went in, what went out, what were the parameters, what was the amount of time it spent thinking. So if anything goes wrong, if you need to troubleshoot something, if you need to check why you got a certain answer, you can dig into it. And the same as with robots leaving logs that you can look at, we have traces for agents, so you can see what was happening and hopefully to find why you got an answer that you got. And we can use those agents from within our normal automations. So often we would have an automation that at a certain point needs some judgment, that uses logic that cannot be put into a lot of ifs. And so your classical automations, they can call up an agent, give it some set of information, and then get the judgment back from an agent. It can be something like getting the right information from an email, but it can also be something way more complex, and there can be automations underneath it. So you can imagine an agent that your automation gets a request to create a customer or a vendor in your databases, and then you send information about them to an agent, and the agent, using tools, gets the information from different systems, a lot of them outside of your company, and then uses the judgment to tell us whether it's fine to work with this particular company, or maybe we need a human to have a look at it because the algorithm sees some things that look somehow suspicious to it. And very often we have those processes that are automatable, but they do need at certain places some more advanced logic. And so putting agents into your classical automations may be the way to go here. But UiPath agentic automation is way more than that. And the part that impressed me the most is what they used to call agentic orchestration. It's now called Maestro. And UiPath, if you're listening, I think the old name was better. UiPath Maestro is basically a way of orchestrating long and complex processes that have a lot of moving parts and being able to put them together in a clear and easy to understand way. What we always used to do with long and complex processes, we had to slice them into smaller automations. Smaller automations that would work together or in a sequence, but very often between those automations, we would have a human doing something that the automation isn't able to do. There is already a way of modeling this kind of processes within the UiPath platform. It's called long-running workflows. And we had some automations built in this, but it is quite complex to build and test something like this. And the adoption of it has not been that great so far. And I think the main reason for it is that it is quite hard to read and understand the way it is built. And so in Maestro, what we have is a BPMN diagram, which is a notation that a lot of you are familiar with. Even if you don't know it's a BPMN notation, you might have used it once or twice in your life. And this diagram, it clearly tells us what our automation is doing. It shows us what are the bits and pieces that the automation is put together from. And when it runs, when we test it, you can clearly see where it's going, what decisions have been made. So I think it solves a lot of problems that long-running workflows have. The problems that decided on a low adoption of this way of automating. When we got early access as one of UiPath's partners to the agents and Maestro, we immediately started building some prototypes, some labs to see how it could actually work. And one of the labs, one of the examples that we have built is a recruitment helper. The idea is that we have modeled a process where as an input, we get an email with an attached CV. So people are basically applying to different positions in our organization. The whole process tries to automate as much administration around the recruitment process as possible. So we have an orchestrated process that models that administration with different types of automation within the UiPath platform. So we have agents here, we have integrations, we have robots, we have action center. So we tried to use as many different elements of the platform as possible just to see how it works and how those little bits and pieces will work together. So this particular process, it starts with the email coming in, and through the integration, we get all the information from the email, including the attachments. And then first we have the phishing guard agent. This is the agent that I have shown you a moment before. It is a part of this automation. So the phishing guard agent first decides whether the email that we got, is it okay for processing or not? When we got early access to the Maestro platform as one of UiPath's Platinum partners, we immediately wanted to use it and to try it out and to model some labs in it to see how it works and what will be our experience of working with the tool. And one of the examples that we have modeled in it is a recruitment helper, which basically is a flow that helps recruitment deal with the administration part of recruitment. And there is a lot of administration around recruitment. So we have it modeled end-to-end within the tool, and we have used a lot of different types of activities within the map. We used agents, we used integrations, we used robots, action center. We wanted to try out as many possible tools just to see how they're going to work together. And so in this example, let's say somebody sends us an email sending us an attachment with a CV. And also within the body, they say what position they are applying for, and also they ask a question. So they ask a question about working hours and whether it's okay to bring a cat to the office. So basically, what is a policy on bringing animals into the office? This example, we created a CV that makes sense in the context of an RPA developer position, but on purpose, we have removed information about language proficiency. It is one of the things that we need in the recruitment process. So when we get this email with a CV and some questions in the email body, the automation is run, and it first through a Graph API gets all the info about the email. So the body, the subject, the attachments. Then we have the anti-phishing agent that I have shown you a moment before. So this is an agent that basically gets this email and decides whether it is okay to process it or not. When it makes a positive decision, the process goes on, and we do some cleanup on the mailbox. We mark the email as read, and we save the data from the email in the database within the UiPath platform, so in a data service. And then if there is an attachment, we go into another agent, and it is an agent that extracts information from a CV. CV is unstructured data, right? It's kind of like with invoices. Every invoice has the same kind of information, but with every invoice, you have this information presented in a different way, and it's the same thing with CVs. So we are using an agent to extract the exact information that we need. There is a set of data points that we expect to get from a typical CV. Then once this is extracted, we update this data, we upload this data into the data service. And then there's two other agents that start the run. They run in parallel. One of them is checking whether the data that we got from the CV, is it all of the data that we need to be able to process this application. So if there is some data that is missing, we know that we do have to write an email asking the person to give us this particular data point. And in parallel, we have an answer generator. So this answer generator, as a context, has a lot of information from our company. So it has information about the job description that the people are applying for. It also has some basic information about the company itself, kind of like CyberOla that I have shown in one of the previous episodes. And so those two agents, they generate output, which then goes into another agent, and this agent puts information from those two agents into a nicely written email. So if there were any questions that needed answering, the answers will be in the email. And also, if we do need to ask about any additional information, this will also be put into the same email. And this reply is being generated, but we do not want GenAI to be able to communicate directly with people who are sending us CVs, right? We are not there yet. Those technologies are not mature enough yet. Those models can be sometimes hard to control. So in a process like this, we would always put an action center, a point for human-in-the-loop interaction, where a human operator gets, in an action center, gets a task to review what the reply from our automation would be. When they go into the action center, they see a task that has been assigned to them as a person or to a group of people, and then they assign it to themselves. And when they open it, they see three things. The first thing is we have a table with the candidate profile, and this is all the information that we extracted from the CV and that is needed for this particular position. And we also have information about what are the missing fields. If any information is missing, then we have, in this field, we have information, what exactly is the information that we're missing. And in this case, we are missing language levels. Then in another box, we have the original candidate email. This is needed for context for the person who will be making a decision whether what the automation has come up with is okay. And in the third box, we have a suggested email body to reply to candidate. So in this box, we have a nicely written email, a professional email, that first we answer the questions that the person asked. And in the third box, we have a proposal of an email that the tool came up with. And in this proposal, we have a professionally written email starting with thanking them for sending us a CV and applying for the position. Then we have answers to all the questions that they asked in their email. So in this case, the tool said that we have a pet policy that allows bringing dogs to the office. This is true. We allow and encourage our employees to bring dogs to the office. But there is no mention of cats in this policy because we do not have any other pets regulated in our policies. So this is what the tool tells them, that it doesn't know about cats, but a dog, yes, you can bring a dog. And then also it answers a question about working hours, saying rightfully that you can start between 7 and 10 a.m. And after it answers all the questions, it asks about the data that is missing. So it basically says, to complete your application, you need to provide information about language proficiency level. And then, of course, best regards, as you do, and you have a place to put the recruiter's name, so the person that is actually approving the email. And so if everything is okay, the person, the human operator can change or just approve such an email. And when they click the approve button, the email goes to the person, and then in this particular case, the process ends. The process ends because we are waiting for another email from this person because we still don't have the language proficiency. And so when they reply with another email, and in this case, they are sending an updated CV with information about language proficiency, but they could as well put this information in an email. The process is run again, because every email coming to this particular mailbox, again, goes through the whole process. And so it goes through the same steps. The data is extracted and updated in our data service. And then the answer generator doesn't have anything to add because they didn't ask any new questions. But we still get an action in the action center because every email that is generated by the program needs to be approved by the email. And so then in the action center, the human operator sees, again, the candidate profile, but now with information that all fields have been now provided. We get information about what the candidate email was, and then we get a pretty standard email saying, thank you, the CV appears complete, and we will be in touch when it comes to the next steps. And once this email is approved by an operator, it is sent, but the process doesn't end there, because since we already have all the information on the candidate, we are also using agents to generate things like possible interview questions. And so the agent tries to come up with questions that, in the context of the job description that we have for this position, and in the context of what the person has in the CV, it creates questions that would be relevant to this particular person. So to give you an example, if in the job description we had information that we expect the candidate to be fluent in using UiPath's reframework, and they didn't provide any information about reframework in the CV, then one of the questions will be, what is your experience using reframework? So these are not just, questions out of the blue. They are written in the context of the conversation that we have with the person and the job they are applying for. And another thing that the tool is generating is the profile fit. So it is creating a basic assessment of how much the CV that the person sent us is in line with the job description that they are applying for. And this is as far as we are willing to go, and this is as far as we think you should be going. We don't want AI to make decisions on who we recruit, right? So the interview should be done by a human, and the final decision should be done by a human. But we want AI to help us with all the things that we do before that, because as you can see, there's a lot of administration around a simple recruitment process. So those things we do want the AI to do for us, so that our humans, our recruiters, can focus on the things that humans are really needed for. So as you can see, we can model in Maestro pretty long and complex processes that have a lot of different parts, that can contain basically any actions that are possible within the UiPath platform. And so if you think about where you could use it, imagine things like a process where a customer sends an order, an agent reads it, checks the customer credit and contracts we have with them. This it would do through the integration service or through robots, and then makes a judgment. If there is something wrong, it escalates it for a human decision. But if it sees that everything is okay, it sends the order for processing, and then could even potentially monitor its fulfillment and report on any variation from the model process. Or if you think payroll, like big companies have teams of people processing questions and queries from their employees about their payroll. Right? Employees are asking all kinds of questions, from the usual, why did I get less money than I usually get, to complex ones that require specialized knowledge and experience. And a set of agents based on internal procedures, external regulations, supported by RPA robots and integrations that would supply the agents with necessary data, could answer most of those queries, leaving only the really complex ones to the humans. Everything I've just rambled on about, it's fresh. Generative AI itself is basically a toddler still figuring out how to work without bumping into the furniture. And UiPath's agents and that fancy Maestro orchestration, at the time we're hitting record on this baby, they've only been out in the wild for a few weeks. So yeah, we are just getting started. But here's the kicker. Even with the wrapping paper still on, we're already seeing that this whole AI agents plus Maestro orchestration on top of your good old RPA setup is like finding a secret key to a whole bunch of doors we thought were wielded shut, and probably guarded by a very grumpy dragon. You know how it is. We waltz into a client's office for a process discovery gig, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and we find these magnificent beasts of processes, absolute gold mines for automation. But then reality hits and it's like, oh, this thing is longer than a director's cut of Titanic and requires the kind of nuanced judgment you usually only see from a seasoned bartender. So we'd sigh, maybe shed a single tear onto our flowcharts and mark it too hairy to handle. Now you sprinkle in some agents, a dash of Maestro, and boom, suddenly a whole bunch of those nope can't do it processes are looking surprisingly doable. It's like someone flipped a switch and the thing that made us want to curl up in a ball and cry just a year ago, now prime candidates for an automation makeover. And that, my friends, is the heart of the matter. The soy sauce on the sushi, if you will. It's not about chucking your existing RPA platform out of the window, unless it really deserves it, but that's another episode. Now, this is about beefing it up, giving it superpowers, expanding its horizons. We've been throwing around the term hyper-automation for years, probably to impress people at parties. Well, guess what? I think we've finally stumbled into a reality where it's not just a buzzword you put on a PowerPoint to get more budget. It might actually be happening. About time, wouldn't you say? And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the wild world of UiPath agents and the Maestro, who's supposedly pulling all the strings. Hopefully your own digital orchestra is playing more of a symphony and less of an experimental jazz session. We did this episode in cooperation with UiPath, our first choice in process automation platforms. Arigato gozaimasu to everyone who tuned in. Whether your agents are dutifully processing invoices or you suspect they're using the company network to mine Bitcoin, we appreciate you lending us your valuable eartime. We know your time is precious, unlike that meeting that could have been an email, which, ironically, an agent would have probably written for you. A massive standing ovation, or at least a polite nod to the one and only Anna Tsubal, our producer, who orchestrates this podcast with more finesse than any software suite. Recorded, as always, at the legendary Vodzubit Studios, where the only thing more complex than a multi-layered automation is the debate over the office thermostat. Enjoyed the ride? Don't be shy. Hit subscribe on your podcast app of choice, leave a review, tell the world how this podcast changed your life, or at least mildly entertained you during your commute, and stalk us in a friendly, non-creepy way on social media. Got questions about rogue agents, philosophical debates on whether Maestro is truly sentient, or just want to tell us our autocorrect joke hit a little too close to home? Drop us a message. We love hearing from you, unless you're a bot trying to sell us extended car warranties. Until next time, remember, not every problem needs an AI solution. Sometimes it just needs you to turn it off and on again. Matane.